Hey, everybody. We are back. And just going to bring up our chat down here. Excellent. It is super early in the morning. I've completely inverted my schedule, which is fantastic. I'm pretty thrilled about that. Yeah, it's this whole 20-hour a day thing. So if you see me bobbing my head for this stream, it's because I am listening to these guys in my doohickeys. And I'm listening to this one right now. Now, this music may not be for everybody. If you don't like techno and like ambient and kind of dark industrial music, you're probably not going to like this. But if you do like those things, this is going to be your new home. So, what do I have here? I was talking to one of our subs about KMFDM, and we meandered to this Sisters of Mercy song. It's a cover by DSTR, I think, and I love it. This is a great song, I think, just to begin with. The Sisters of Mercy original, but the remake, wee. If you haven't heard it and you're a Sisters of Mercy fan, again, this is a bit older music, but personally, I like it. This remake, I think, came out in the 2000-ish time frame. So yeah, check it out if you like that kind of stuff. This one I was listening to earlier, and it's this one. This one is like pretty cool for just a chill kind of dark vibe. I think I actually was falling asleep to this last night. But you know, I'm a bit of a strange cookie, so it may not be for you, but for me, I quite like it. And this is definitely my kind of. You got to listen to it to understand the variations that it has. It's not like a constant techno. It kind of does this progressive build up, build down, which I quite like because it keeps it from being repetitive. I'm really keen on eliminating sort of repetition in my life. I think repetition is actually kind of boring. And in fact, one of the things I do for teaching is I have a rule that I never teach the same lecture twice. I just won't do it. I think I actually learned this from, what is his name? I always forget his name. It's like one of my favorite physicists. Richard. Oh, well, it'll come to me. But anyway, he had this rule. I think he taught at Caltech, and he had this rule that he would never teach the same lecture twice because he was like, I'm not living long enough to do that. So I have the same rule is I'll teach things at the uni, but I'll continue to revise my slides, and I will have a hard line that I will not teach the same lecture twice. I'll teach similar concepts, but I won't do it the same way. And part of that is I'm just being selfish, if I'm being honest. I'm being selfish because it's I'm being selfish because I want to learn too. And hold on, let me check the internet here. Let me just switch over, make sure we've got, stream is lower. I was having some internet. Let's see. I might need to, I don't know, it doesn't seem that bad. Let's just see what the upstream is. Upstream is going to be what matters here. Okay, that's fine. I don't know. This should work. And if it doesn't, I'll just upload the recording afterwards. Anyway, so we are rocking out with these guys. And if you like this kind of music, check it out. And if you want to be head bopping with me this whole time, this is the one I'm listening to. And you can coordinate with me. I've got it over on my phone just because I might play some stuff from the computer. Okay. For this episode, I want to talk about 3 things. And these are virtues, things that I follow. And, to be honest, a lot of the things that I learned that have really helped me in life have been things that I learned doing my doctorate. And I think there's a big misconception on what doing a PhD is, at least for me. Obviously, I only did the one PhD, and I just had my experience, so I don't know what other people's experience was like. But I do mentor lots of PhD students now, and I've worked at a variety of different institutions. And generally speaking, of the countless PhDs and professors that I know, probably on the order of maybe thousands at this point, which seems crazy, but I think that's not an exaggeration. Probably at least 100 professors and hundreds of PhDs. So anyway, even though it may seem a bit anecdotal, that camera shake was the dog, by the way. He just decided, hey, Merle, can you not bump the camera, bro? Get up here. Come here. Get up here. I'm going to see if we can get the dog to join us. Merle, hey, you're going to come here. Come here. Come here. Merle, get up here. Okay, here he comes. Here, come. Got him. We got him. This is going to be so much more fun now. Okay, no face kisses. Where was I? Oh, right. We're talking about the PhD. So I think there's a big misconception about this whole PhD thing. I think a lot of people, what they tell me is, to do a PhD, you have to be a super genius. You have to have Mensa level IQ, and you have to have memorized 3,000 different topics. And I mean, a little bit, but that's not really it. The PhD is about growth, perseverance, and being able to fail. Yeah. I mean, there's other things, but those, I think, are the main things. It's growth, perseverance, and being able to fail. So let's talk about all these. The growth part is probably pretty obvious. What you're going to learn how to do in a PhD program, or at least what I learned, is you're going to really learn how to truly think, which probably sounds a little bit obnoxious and arrogant, but if you take my class, one of the things that I try to teach is how to improve people's ability to think rationally. And my students, who are all basically master's and doctorate students at this pretty good university, often kind of scoff at this idea. Because I'll tell them in the first lecture, I'm going to teach you machine programming, and I'm going to work on teaching you how to improve your ability to think critically. And then I'll ask them, how many of you think you already know how to think critically? And they'll all raise their hand and say, yep, I know. Literally, I don't know that I've seen a single one say, no, I don't know how to think critically. So then throughout the quarter, I will start to teach them these things. These are things that I learned doing my doctorate. In the last lecture, right before the final, I'll ask them the same question, but I'll ask them in a slightly different form. I'll say, how many of you have grown in your ability to think critically from this class? Basically, every single one of them raised their hand. And then I will go through some of the students and ask them to tell me and the rest of the class what it is they've learned that has improved their ability to think critically. So it's not just basically you're going to raise your hand and just give the right answer. I want to see if you really did. And in my class, the students kind of know that if you raise your hand, there's a good chance that I'm going to call on you. So they know at this point that that hand goes up, you're sort of volunteering. And so they start to iterate through the things. And many of the things that I try to teach are the things that were taught to me. So the first part is growth, and a lot of it is just central growth in the way that we think and our ability to think rationally, to try to properly qualify the knowledge that we currently have for a specific area. Then to understand potentially what information is potentially missing. And then to figure out what needs to be done to start to remediate some of that missing information. And then you go and learn. So this is like the part of the growth process. And a lot of the growth is, it's not just learning, it's also doing, but learning usually comes first. You learn about something, then you do, and you do, and you do. You practice, practice, practice. But there is this period of learning first. So that's the growth part. Perseverance. Perseverance part is you've just got to put in the hours. There's no PhD that I'm aware of that became a super researcher or super anything without putting in the reps, essentially. You have to put in the work. All the best athletes in the world, all of the world-class scholars, all of the super entrepreneurs and founders, if you talk to any of them, the universal thing that I hear, the ones that are the real game changers, they put in the work. That's the perseverance. And perseverance is slightly more than just work. Perseverance is saying, look, you're going to be thrown challenges that are going to make you want to quit. You're going to get up some mornings like I did this morning at midnight, and I thought, I've been streaming every day for a while now. Maybe I'll take a day off. No. I need to keep the Jeters happy and keep sharing the knowledge. I'm not going to live forever. And so it's game on. It's time to share the things that I've spent the last 50 years learning. And my hope is that all of you will do the same. We'll continue to pass this forward and we'll continue to grow as a community, right? Like, let's do that. This is a very real thing. And the truth is, I think that we've got to do this because there's stuff going on in the world today that is not super great, but we need more people that are good-natured, that foster goodwill, and are going to go out of their way to help make the world a better place. And I know there's a lot of you out there. So the second piece is the perseverance. We talked about this. This is not just working hard, but working hard through the struggles, through the challenges. And then the last piece is failing. The failing part really has to do with the publications, the presentations, the working with people that you are unfairly disadvantaged against. This is maybe the first time in most students' lives where you will be in a situation where the deck is stacked against you, not for you, and it's not even a level playing field. And what I mean is, prior to the PhD, when you're competing and you're working with folks, it's fellow students. It's people that essentially are at your same level. You're in 7th grade, you hang out with the 7th graders. You're in 11th grade, you work with the 11th graders. You're an undergrad, sophomore, that's your group. You get to grad school and you're working on your master's and taking those classes, it's the same thing. But once you get into the PhD program, you no longer just compete with PhD students. You are competing also with PhDs and professors and research scientists and arguably the best people in the world, because you're now trying to get into the top tier and have peer-reviewed publications. You, unfortunately, or fortunately, don't necessarily have those publications or know how to do research, and these people do. It's unfair. And yet you have to compete against them to get in. How do you do this? You fail. You go in when the odds are against you into an arena that you know you are disadvantaged against, and you try anyway, and then you fail, and you try again, and you fail over and over. And what happens is you learn. You learn in a way that you likely would never learn if you just took another class and got another A and talked to your parents and your friends about your amazing GPA, these are all good things. But as I've said many times, the PhD is the only degree that I'm aware of where it's principally about failure, not success. What I mean by that is that almost all the other degrees, maybe all of them that I'm aware of, including other professional doctorates, like PhD is a research doctorate, to my knowledge. I think it's the only research doctorate. Professional doctorates are things like PharmD, an MD, JD, so medical doctorate, pharmaceutical doctorate, Juris doctorate. Those are, I'm not saying anything bad about those degrees. Those are incredible degrees, but they're based on continuing to succeed. You have exams, you have courses, you have tests, and there's an understanding that you're going to pass the bar and you're going to do things where you're essentially going to succeed. PhD is designed in a very different way. It's designed essentially that your advisors know you're going to fail. You're going to submit that first research paper, it won't get accepted. It probably won't get accepted for a while. But you should start submitting those in year 1 so you can start to experience how bad that feeling is. And that's why the attrition rates for PhD schools oftentimes are upwards of 50%, is that most people cannot deal with this type of rejection in repetition. They can't deal with it with such high frequency, such repetitive cadence. And this is something that I think oftentimes is learned. It was really hard for me. I had never really failed with such extravagance before. I was in environments where I was basically sheltered. So the point in all of this is the PhD is not about this Mensa level IQ. It's not about that you're like S tier coder, you're smarter than everybody else, all of these things. I mean, those things help, right? But that's not what's going to get you through a program. And on top of that, what the PhD teaches you, in my mind, is it teaches you how to grow as a human. It teaches you how to become a more rational, logical person, someone that is going to take feedback and criticism with much more objectivity. Someone that is going to really understand how to value the things that matter. Someone that's going to understand how to think far more critically and less emotionally. And along those lines, I wanted to talk about some of these things because as I was starting this off, a lot of the things that I talk about here and over here are things that I learned doing my PhD and then other, as a professor and a scientist and all of these things throughout my career. Many of these I learned from my mentors. Some of these I learned just through my own experience. But given that we were just talking about the being triggered in the last episode, I thought that now would be a good time to talk about things sort of peripherally related to that. So the first thing I want to talk about is choosing your inner circle wisely. And my personal view is this is extremely important. This is almost as important, I think, as being introspective. Introspective might be like slightly more important, but you can be the most introspective person in the world and have all this growth. But if you have an inner circle that's not super great, that's not there to support you, that doesn't have the same aspirations that you have, I've literally seen great people be brought down by their inner circle. And this is hard. This is very hard. I like to believe that the people that I know and that I travel with today have almost all shared with me that they've had to evolve their inner circle. And again, I don't take the view that we're all meant to travel together for our entire life. I think there are seasons. And it doesn't mean that we lose contact with these people entirely, but it could be that these are your childhood friends and you spend a lot of time with them as a child, but now you want to go to the next level, whatever that means, and they want to stay where they are, and you have a choice to make. Stay where they are and live that life, or go where you really want to go. And it can be very difficult to do both, that you oftentimes have to make a decision. They're, in some sense, mutually exclusive. And it can be challenging. So, especially, it's not just friends. Sometimes it's actually family, which, again, is, in some circles, this is heresy, right? But I think that while some family members can be really great to help you on your journey, I think other family members, including my own, are bad influences. They don't necessarily support what my vision is in life, but more than that, they try to project their value system onto me. This is where I generally draw the line. If people have different aspirations in life, I generally am totally fine with that. It's only the cases where they start to project their value system onto me, which is different, and they want me to change, oftentimes, at least for me, to not do the crazy things that I want to do. Because admittedly, I'm a little off the reservation, and there's wild things that I want to do, and wild things that I have been trying to achieve. And maybe achieving to some degree for the last 25 years. And what I don't need are people in my life that are feeding me negativity on, oh, that can't be done, or oh, other people can't do this, so you shouldn't be able to, or oh, a lot of it, that negative speak is really, it's insecurity that they have with themselves, is that because they don't necessarily have the competency or the drive or whatever to do these things, then you shouldn't be able to either. And again, this is not necessarily a judgment call. I don't think that these are bad people. I think oftentimes it's just fear. And that's fine. Everybody can live their own life. The reason why this matters is not as a mechanism of judgment. It matters as a mechanism of life strategy. That I think that it's very true that you are the average of your 5 closest friends or your 5 closest contacts. So be really careful about who you let into your inner circle. This is one of the most important things that I did to change my life, and it has changed my life in phenomenal ways. The inner circle that I have today is incredible. I'm extremely lucky, and it's a lot of work. It's definitely not something that you can, people of really high quality and substance, a lot of people want their time. A lot of people want access to them. And if you want to be around those people, you generally have to work for it. It's not going to happen overnight. And that's a good thing. That's how it should be. That, like, for example, I'm very particular on the students that I work with. And one of the things that I look for is perseverance. I look largely for the 3 things that I was talking about. I look to see if they have a growth mindset. I look to see that they have a work ethic that will demonstrate they can persevere. And I look to see if they have the ability to fail gracefully. Many other things too, but those are some of the most important things. And for example, if you look at Taylor Dolezal, my new head of product and my chief of staff, who probably will very soon be Murley's chief product officer, I see all those qualities in Taylor. And Taylor is maybe 15 years my junior, but I'm mentoring him. And over time, what will happen is I'll see him develop in the ways that I'm wildly confident that he can develop in, and then he'll be ready. And principally, it's because he has those 3 things. He has a growth mindset, so he's constantly trying to grow and be better. I just need to reset something here. And he perseveres through all of these various hardships. Believe me, the last few weeks for Taylor have been very hard. And he can deal with failure. He just like water off a duck's back. And he's getting better with it every day. It's hard. It's very hard to deal with this. It's very easy to say. It's very hard to do, especially when you're doing it at the clip that Taylor and I deal with it, especially when you start to move into like what I consider the tier 1 space or the world-class space, because you're going to deal with failure at a much larger frequency than you likely have before. And the reason for that is you're going to have to level up to play in the majors. It's sort of like when you have rookies entering in the major leagues for baseball. And when they first start playing in the majors, they strike out a lot. Their batting average is horrific. You're failing because you're not there yet. But you will be there as long as you persist. You have to be able to have that perseverance, and you have to be able to fail gracefully. Okay, so when you are building your inner circle and you're finding those people that you want to be around, it will take time. It should. For example, with Taylor, he and I were working together for, it was like 2 years before he came over to Merle. I think that part of that is he and I were both trying to learn about each other. But if he did want to join Merle after working with me for a month or so, I don't know that I would. I don't think he'd be in the position that he's in now. So these things will take time. But as you're starting to select your inner circle, my recommendation is that you consider at least these questions. At least. And this is just my list. So if you are not interested in my life philosophy and the general things that I'm striving for, this may not be right for you. But if you do, and I suspect maybe you are if you're watching this, these are some of the questions that I almost always ask for anyone that I'm going to allow in my inner circle. And by allow, I really mean allow. That I think you should be very particular about your inner circle. And again, it's not to say that people are bad. I don't subscribe to that mentality at all. I foster goodwill. But it does mean that different people are on different journeys in life. They're on different paths. And we need to make sure that the paths line up. The path that you're on matches the path that they're on. And sometimes these paths match for some period of time, and then they deviate, and then they re-emerge. Sometimes they stay aligned for a very long period of time, like the paths that Urs and I have. Urs being Merle's chief engineer. He and I have stayed on similar paths for 25 years, and so here we are. So some of the questions that I ask when I'm deeply thinking about if I want someone in my inner circle, the first is this a good person? What does this mean? Like, is the person truthful? Does the person have integrity? Is the person someone that you can trust? Trust is the foundation for basically any relationship. And I don't necessarily think people are going to match with me in every different dimension, but minimally, I need to know that I can trust them and that they have high degrees of integrity. Again, this is just my inner circle. If it's an acquaintance or whatever, I don't know that I really care. But someone that I'm going to like take into my house, or I'm going to have be someone that's more than an acquaintance, someone that I'm going to spend a lot of time in, I'm going to invest in, they're going to invest in me. I need to know that they're trustworthy, that there's a saying, I think, with the Navy SEALs that you need to be able to trust them with your life and trust them with your wife. These two things. Something like this. And so you should ask those questions. Is it something that you could do? And if not, maybe you should pick someone else. So that's on one of the first questions. Next one is about empathy. I think this is super important. If the person is not empathetic toward others, and I don't mean like everybody, but I mean the people that they care about, do they care about their own inner circle? Or are they just obsessed with themselves? Are they like a very selfish person? Because you can have someone that's really trustworthy, but they're very like self-interested. If they're very self-interested, probably not a good person for your inner circle. And the reason why I say that is inner circles, at least the way I think about that, they should be about mutual value. You should be getting something. They should be getting something. It doesn't have to be equal, but there is value for both parties, even if it's a mentor-mentee type of thing. So many of my mentors, as they've told me, part of what is satisfying for them is they are seeing growth in me. And at some point, they have the view that I'm going to reach a level where they can start learning from me. Or there's characteristics that I have that they don't have. And so they are learning from me the whole time, or for some portion of it. And similarly, I've done the same thing with my mentees. In fact, some of the mentees that I have even today are teaching me things constantly. So it's not a unidirectional road. And generally speaking, you can usually tell if it's going to be a bidirectional road if they exude empathy for others. Because if they do, they will likely exude empathy for you too. And if you're a good person, which I suspect all of you who are watching this are, you probably already exude empathy for others. And so you just need to make sure that it's like reciprocal. Okay. The next one that is important, I think, and a bit unusual is asking if they have long-term relationships with others. Now, for young people, like maybe in their late teens, early 20s, they might not have been alive long enough to find people that are really like high quality people that they are going to have long-term relationships with. So this is not like a knock against them if they don't have those. Also, some people have not learned about choosing their inner circle wisely when they were younger. And so they're a little slow to pick this up. And so they may not have long-term relationships because of this. However, if you find someone that you believe they have all the characteristics of someone that had the opportunity to build relationships with strong people, and they have lived long enough to be able to establish those, and they do not have long-term relationships with others, this is a red flag for me. The reason why this is a red flag is my view in life is old is gold. It's not the grass is greener. It's establishing long-term relationships with people that have tremendous value. It's very much like this channel. And the reason why I won't do the TikTok thing, I mean, we might do like Instagram shorts, mostly just to send them over to the long form. But my view is long form, just like long-term relationships, are where the true value is. That things of substance are not sound bites. They're not 30-second TikTok videos. Like, you don't get a PhD in 15 minutes. It takes time. It takes effort. It is hard. And so likewise, if you meet someone that you're thinking about with your inner circle, and it turns out they have no long-term relationships with others, I mean like none, this is generally not a good sign. And by the way, when I say relationship, I don't mean like a wife or a husband. I mean friends. I mean mentors. I mean their parents or their siblings. And again, different people at different situations. Like maybe they don't have a family. These things happen, right? Maybe they are more introverted and so they're not as social. Yeah, I get all these things, right? But if you see that they have sort of a pattern where they have had friends, but then they don't have them anymore, like none, there's no long-term recurring characters in their story, there's probably a reason for that. Again, it can vary. And so sometimes people go apart, but I think that really good people, they tend to be able to have integrity, work through hard problems with other people, and they choose their inner circle wisely, so they have long-term relationships. Like, for example, my relationship with Morris Hurley. He and I have known each other for 20 years. Or Ali Reza Al-Tabatabai. I've known and worked with Ali for 15 years. Urs Muff, 25 years. So on and so forth. Yeah, there's countless others. Alex Aiken, I think I've been working with for, I feel like almost a decade now. He's my mentor over at this place. So you should generally be able to see that there is some recurrence of characters in their story. Just as an aside, one of the things that really drew me to Asmongold, which, again, I know some people have issues with Asmund. I'm not saying Asmund's perfect, but I love that he's authentic, and I do think that Asmund generally is a really good person. I also think that when Asmund gets angry, he's getting angry oftentimes because he's exuding empathy for others. You'll often find that Asmund doesn't care if people make fun of him. In fact, I watched him watch the Roach King video where they're calling him the Roach King, and there's like, that's not a good thing. Not like in the gaming world, that's like you bail out and abandon your team and stuff. Not that he does this, but like it's just making fun of him, and I mean it's there's a duality to it. It's like praising him but also making fun of him, and he just laughs it off, and he's like, actually, I love this video. This is like so good. A lot of people that are just thinking about themselves, they are not going to be able to handle that way. They're going to be like, this is so offensive, this is, you're attacking me, I don't like this, blah blah blah, right? This is victim mentality. This is insecurity, high ego stuff. And this is also the stuff that you see when people don't exude this, because they're spending so much time thinking about themselves. They're not thinking about others. So yeah, if they have a lot of empathy, they almost always will have this. Not always, almost always. So the next one that I ask myself is if they have characteristics in them that I admire. And for anyone in my inner circle, it pretty much, I sort of require this. There must be something in them that I see that I think this is a really wonderful characteristic that they have. And I like this. This is something that I can learn from them about. If there are no characteristics in someone that you admire, I might consider rethinking them as someone in your inner circle. Right? I mean, maybe. Like, even if it's someone that's less accomplished than you can admire their fire. You can admire their courage, right? Like, there's things, they don't have to be like super famous. You admire them like they won all these awards, or they're a professor at some fancy place, or they created their own company. Like, no. Like, they have good qualities. Like, they care about other people. They are a really good listener. They're introspective. There's stuff that you can find. You should be able to find in these folks if they're going to make your inner circle. At least this is my strong conviction. And then the last one, there's actually many, many more questions that I ask here, but we'll leave it at this. The last one that I ask is about this growth mindset. If someone does not have a growth mindset, I don't want them in my inner circle. This is a strong claim. I don't want them. And the reason why is growth is, at least for me, one of the most important qualities for my inner circle. If someone isn't coming into my inner circle with that mentality, they won't last long. Even if they are phenomenal today, but they've decided they're done growing, I will, believe me, I've been through this process many times. I will eventually, I don't want to say become bored with them, but it won't be a bi-directional relationship. I won't be able to find value in them because of the lack of growth. Is that it's sort of like we're starting a race together, and we've been running the laps up until this point our entire lives, and we've both done 700 laps or something. And then we realize that, hey, we should team up and go on this journey together. And as soon as we do, they stop running. And then I'm still running. And now we're not running together anymore. And at some point you ask yourself, are you even really running with this person? Are they even on the same path as you are? And again, it doesn't have to be this crazy thing where they're spending all of their time growing and learning. But what it means is that if you don't have a growth mindset, think about how there are people that you know that turn a blind eye to their flaws. That, like, one of the ones that I think is like maybe the most obvious is when they have clear weaknesses, like we all do, and you can kind of tell that they're aware of their weaknesses. Like, they do stuff that you just know is not good, and they know is not good, and you make them aware of these things, and instead of being receptive to that, they get hyper defensive. That is not a growth mindset. That's the opposite of growth mindset. That likely they're someone that's insecure. That response is, anyway, very insecure. And when you get people that are highly defensive, it usually is that they have that mindset of it's an ego thing. It's, I should be accepted exactly as I am. I don't have these problems. We all have problems. There's things that all of us should be working on. And therefore, if someone is giving you critical feedback on things that you can improve on, and it's fair, and it's not like attacking, it's like they're just trying to help you, that shouldn't create a defensive posture in people. I mean, it can, but if they really do have a growth mindset, they'll look at this and say, that's actually pretty good feedback. Let me give you an example. Dr. Mattson was looking at some of the videos I was putting together, and he made a comment on one of the videos that I was saying, like, software tends toward entropy. And he pinged me about this, and he said, hey, so like the videos, this is all great, but, as a physicist and a chemist, and he is these things, right? Like, this guy's just knows, he's the knower of incredible things, again, in my inner circle for a reason. I learn things from Mattson constantly. He says, I don't really like the language of this title. I think software tends toward entropy. And he said, it's like, his example, I think, was you wouldn't go out and say that the temperature tends toward heat. You would say the temperature is increasing in heat, or the temperature is increasing. And so he made the comment of, like, you may want to rename the title of this video to be something like software tends toward increasing entropy. And I explained kind of why I did it the way I did it, but I didn't disagree with him. I said, I don't disagree with you. I think that's right. The challenge that I have is I need to keep the title short. And so we got into a discussion, and eventually he and I figured out a title that would be better, that would be short and fit my requirements, but also address his concern. Now, notice Mattson's feedback here was not meant to hurt me. He wasn't doing this to attack me. He was doing this, one, because he trusts me. That's like one of the most important things about feedback. Usually when people give you feedback, it's a sign that they trust you. This is actually one of the things some people miss. And almost anytime someone gives you feedback, it's a sign that they feel comfortable and safe with you, that they can share things that could offend you, but are hoping you're such a good person and will take this gracefully. That's the first piece. I mean, generally, there are some bad actors out there, but let's foster goodwill. The second piece is, on top of trusting me, he's trying to help me. And again, he's an expert. He has lots of characteristics I admire, and he knows what he's talking about this entropy thing way more than I do. I'm not a physicist. I'm like a computer engineer. I'm a computer scientist. And so he knows more about this, and he's right. So while maybe it hurt my feelings a little bit that my title wasn't great, but that doesn't matter. Like, I don't care about being right. I care about being better. And in this example, Tim was helping me become better. And that's what I'm focusing on. So I realized I was wrong. His feedback was going to make me less wrong, and it was going to make me better. And so I listened to it. Pretty cool. And on top of that, like, a big reason for this is because I have this growth mindset, and Mattson knows I have a growth mindset. It's part of the reason why he's giving me feedback is he's like, oh, Goju, I know that he wants to grow. I've known him for a very long time. He always is trying to make himself better. He'll probably want to know this. And I did. And I changed it. And if you look up the channel, you'll see that we changed it, that it says now software or code tends toward increased entropy or something. Very minor change, but an example of don't take a defensive posture, have a growth mindset, and the things that you can do when you have chosen your inner circle wisely. Okay. We're at 50 minutes, and I want to just quickly talk about this last piece. We're not going to be able to get done with this, but I want to just put this idea in your head so you can think about it, and then maybe in the next video we can go a little bit deeper. When you are in today's society, there's a lot of this, or there was a lot of this social justice warrior stuff. Like, you say something on Twitter or X or whatever it's called now, and 1,000 people jump on you because you didn't get one word exactly right. And this is, I mean, in most cases, if we're being intellectually honest, this is just ridiculous, right? Look at foster goodwill. Assume that people's intentions are wholesome. Don't assume negativity. If you did that, like, we'd all be, and this is part of the reason why I think that there's a lot of conflict in the world, is we're assuming malintent. And yes, sometimes that exists, but sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes there's just misunderstandings. And I think we should foster goodwill until we no longer can. Along those same lines, if someone says something to you and you feel attacked, or you feel embarrassed, or you feel offended, or whatever, any of those things, in general, I would say, unless it's a very clear, like, attack on you, it's oftentimes, I think, your ego that's at fault here, that you're just sort of insecure about it. And I want to follow up with a comment that was just made a couple hours ago on one of the videos I did on software architecture. I did this video for untranslatable metaphor. I think I got his name. Untranslatable or uninterpretable, but I think it's untranslatable metaphor. And so I did this video for this guy who I really like. I like his questions. I like things he's thinking about. We think and care about similar things. And so I did a VOD on software architecture and quickly talked about some of the things that he was interested in. So he wrote back, and in his response, he said something like, I wonder, actually, let's go and let's see if we can find it so we can look exactly at what he said. It's software architecture. I think it's this one. Okay, here we go. Untranslatable metaphor, 7 hours ago. Here's what he says. I think that by now you understand that I like to argue with people who are way smarter than me. Okay, so obviously he's starting off giving me a little love here, because I believe he's intending for this to be toward me. Here's what he says. But I strongly disagree that software architecture is not needed for projects below 100,000 lines of code. In my opinion, projects of any size profit from clean architecture. Also, is it okay if I ask a few questions about Datsa? All right. So here's what I think about this. So here's one of my students, right? Or something like this. Or he'll say that or I think he said that he is learning from me. And truthfully, I'm learning from him, I think, as much as he's learning from me. But one could look at this and say, if you have an ego, how dare you? Oh, I'm so offended. Like, you're disagreeing with me and you're like my student. No, here's what I do. I love this. I love this. Okay. So I'll just read what I just wrote. I actually wholly agree with you, my friend. My apologies if I misspoke and said that 100K or less LOC projects don't need software architecture. What I meant was that if it's less than 100,000 lines of code, it might be less necessary than larger projects. But I agree with you entirely. I think any project of any size could potentially benefit from a clean architecture. In fact, DOTSA, which is significantly less than 100K LOC, probably more like 10K LOC, is a concrete example of that. Love it. Please keep the comments coming. And I'd love to hear your questions on DOTSA. Okay. Now, on top of this response, my hope is that you can see I actually mean this, that I'm not pretending. And oftentimes I think you can usually tell because people that like are sort of trying to flex about their enlightenedness or whatever, you'll get from their body language, right, that their heart rate is elevated, that their body is getting tense. They won't necessarily have this. Oh, no, my song almost finished. I had to restart it. Sorry. That's more important. They won't. They will. Their mind will be racing about how to position themselves in a way that makes people know that they're right, essentially. And my hope is that you could see that as I'm reading this, I actually truthfully totally agree with him. I think that it's a great point. And if I misspoke about this, I'm wrong, right? He's right. And so this is not nonsense. And this is what happens, I think, truthfully. This is what happens when you really are able to get beyond your insecurities. I have all kinds of issues. I just know what those issues are. And so, like, one of the things that I know I have an issue with is sometimes I don't exactly articulate what I mean. I don't always have exactly the right words. So I miscommunicate things constantly. And so it's entirely possible that what I said in that video, like, I don't even remember what I said. I said something about, like, you probably need software architecture if it's 100,000 lines or more, but you may not need it for less than that. And so he's probably calling me out for saying something that's dubious, and he's probably totally right in doing that. Here's an example. Student, teacher, I just learned something from my student. Like, he's helping me communicate better. And I love that. Again, inner circle. Just a really good example. You can find people to add to your inner circle all the time. This is actually why I spend so much time interacting with a certain select members of the Jeters. Is there's certain people that I get a very strong sense that these people deeply care, right? They have some of the things. A good person, exudes empathy. I don't know about this with untranslatable metaphor, but I see characteristics in him that I admire. He's very much growth mindset, no question about that. He's super curious, and he's very much keen on precision of language. I know this because this is not the first time he's called me out, and it probably won't be the last. On top of that, as you can tell, most of the people in my inner circle spend a lot of time telling me that I'm wrong. Not to hurt me, but to be like, hey, I don't think you got this thing exactly right. Like what Mattson did, which he was right. And what untranslatable metaphor probably just did. And he's probably right. And so on and so forth. So when you get beyond your ego, what often happens is you won't be a victim because nobody can really victimize you. I mean, I understand there are corner cases. Yes. Hopefully all of you can be intellectually honest with me. There are times if, like 10 men rush into my house right now and kidnap me, I'm probably going to be a victim. Okay. I'm just talking about cases where untranslatable says this, and then I decide to play the victim. And I say, oh, how dare you? I'm so offended, and you embarrassed me in front of all these people, and I feel attacked. Just no. If you feel yourself even suggesting these words, generally speaking, what I found is just stop. Just be like, who cares? Like, one, are they right? And two, like, why would you give them that power? Like, you just gave this person that maybe you don't even like all the power in the world because now you're thinking about them and they control your emotions. Same with embarrassment. Same with being attacked. Just don't do it. Just basically, for example, I made this post on LinkedIn. I was trying to help people understand that there's a potential problem with DeepSeek in terms of it sharing data to the CCP, which I think has been mostly confirmed at this point. And some people commented in public forum and basically demanded that I remove the comment. Otherwise, it's like libel or it's libel or what is the other? Yeah, there's another thing that you can have. It's slipping in my mind right now, probably because this techno music is so great. But I didn't like feel it was like something legal thing. Like, we're going to come after you legally. And it's like, okay, well, what I'm saying here is factual, because I didn't necessarily say at that point that DeepSeek was doing anything wrong. I was saying it had the potential to share these things, and that I would recommend proceeding with caution. And defamation, libel and defamation. Those are the two things that they were saying, and in a public forum too, so all these other people could read it. And I looked at it and I thought, ooh, I feel. And then I was like, no, look at what you said. Did you say anything wrong? No, you double checked it. It just said about the potentiality of it. You didn't say that it actually does it, and so you're good. And so it stayed completely intact. So this is like, I think, an example. Okay, I'm just testing to see if you guys can hear the bird. The birds have woken up. I have this bird right outside of my house that he's real chatty. He's going to be chatting for the next hour. So it's good we're wrapping things up because I've got to close some doors. But we'll get into this a little bit next time. I encourage all of you to consider this. Again, I know that there are corner cases. Yes, you can flame me in the comments. That's fine. And I'll probably agree with you because you're probably right. But in a general sense, if you find yourself feeling like someone has offended you or attacked you or embarrassed you, what I generally do is I try to look inward and ask myself, why would I feel offended? Why would I feel attacked? Why would I feel embarrassed? Why do I feel like a victim? Do I really want to give this person that power? And is it more that I'm feeling insecure about myself and that's something that I need to resolve? And if it is truly that they're saying something that's completely inappropriate, then isn't that a signal about who they are rather than who you are? And if they are saying something that's like racist or sexist or anything like that, why would you care? Because that would be something that's like not a good sign. It's like maybe not a good person. And if they're not a good person and they're saying things that are not great, they probably shouldn't be part of this. And then I think maybe you have your answer. So with that, let's adjourn and continue next time.